Welcome to the Borderlands Trail and Ultra Running Podcast. I am beyond excited today because as long as I've been in trail, I've had the pleasure of watching today's guest, Jeff Browning, running, seeing him at Wasatch, when I was living in Salt Lake City. So it's just an honor to get to have him today, to do 10 minutes with Jeff. Glad that you are here with us. So Jeff, man, I'm just going to come right out of the gates with this. This has been something I've been enjoying with each guest that we've had on to this point. I've just showed an old photo. This is an old photo. Dig deep into Instagram. I went way back. I've got like 1,000, 1,500 photos in mine. You've got about 1,500 in yours. And I went way back to your first Instagram because your first Instagram actually references trail running. So I thought I would show you this photo. And I just want you to tell us about the person in this photo right here. What's going on there?
I was recovering.
Uh-huh.
I think was that 2012?
Yeah.
Wasatch?
You're recovering from Wasatch, my heart. That's great.
Yeah, so my son would have been a little over a year old, my youngest, who's now 14. And I was just pulling him. We had a circle drive. We had a gated 1 acre lot.
Okay.
In that house we lived in Bend, Oregon, just south of town, outside the city limits. It was kind of a cool, we called it the Crater House. It had a quarter acre, 15-foot recessed like crater in it.
Amazing.
It was like our own personal campground, personal playground. And we had a big circle drive, and the kids used to ride their bikes in circles, and I just put the youngest in that cart, and that was my recovery. I was just walking the circle drive with him in the wagon.
Nice.
While drinking I think that was a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale back when I drank beer. Before I did OFM and high fat, low carb, back when I used to have beer on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I don't really drink much beer anymore, but
nice.
Yeah, that was my recovery. Shuffling around. Had a ton of inflammation because I used to do high carb and so recovery I was kind of beat up afterwards a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tell you, one of my main questions that I've had when thinking about you, you're 53, you're chasing the age group fastest time at Wasatch. I always do that. Western States.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about like the crazy growth in trail running, and you've been around, you've been going hard for a long time before the growth. And can you give me a high level of your observation of towing the line at your first Western States versus what you are anticipating when you get there later today or tomorrow?
Oh my gosh, it's going to be crazy fast, especially with the forecast. It's only supposed right now, the forecast is like 93 in Auburn. So pretty cool year. Normally, I mean, in a hot year, it's usually upper 90s or triple digits in Auburn. So it's a pretty, low 90s is a pretty cool year for Western States. I think it's only going to be like 75 in the high country as a high. So, my first one was 02. To give you guys perspective, back then it was a 50% chance of getting in the lottery.
50.
So they still had the same amount of slots. So,
right.
It was, there, maybe 600 people were entering back then. So that shows you like how much has changed. It was my first 100 in 02. And then it took me forever to get back in. It got popular. It got huge. I got back in through Ultra was the title sponsor in 2016. And when I heard they announced that they were going to be title sponsor in 15, I immediately emailed people and said, I know you guys get a spot, so give me one. I've been trying to get in for like 7 years back in. So, and then I just knew I needed to stay in the top 10 after that, to kind of get back in every year. So I had a 4-year run in the top 10, 16 through 19. So I'm excited to go back. It's going to be so fast. It's just so fast these days, In the past, I would still, even at my age, I would still in past iterations of it, pre 2021, 22, I would have definitely still been shooting for the top 10. But I mean, looking back, like last year wasn't a super hot year. and 10th was like 15:18. And my PR from 19 is a 15:55. So I'm not really focusing on the top 10 anymore. I mean, if it presents itself, then obviously I'll throw down. But I'm really just going for time. I'm going for that record. I kind of want that as a career stat.
Yeah.
At my age, I'm just chasing career stats at this point.
Love
So yeah, that's my goal.
Nice. I'll ask you one more before Brian asks you some questions. Let me just say one thing. 2002 versus, let's say, the last running that you did. Which vibe do you like better? Do you like that old vibe of 2002 more, or do you like where it's going?
I like the hoopla. It's fun. I think that back in, 02, it was so small. I mean, it was like, still a really small cult sport. There just wasn't, and it was the big race back then even.
Yeah.
But there were only, to give you guys perspective, I think like back then, there was only like 3,300s in the U.S. I think there's like over 200 now.
That's crazy.
So that just kind of gives you some perspective on like how much the sport's grown. There weren't real pros back then. Everybody had a day job. I still have a day job, but but like, there's a lot of guys who don't have to work much. They can just train.
Right. That's awesome, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, you've talked about how fast the race has really gone off the front end, and I was looking back at Strava. You've had a nice little block. Looks like you kind of had some nice weeks at about 100 miles and close to like 20,000 feet of vert on just average. How does that compare to like 2016, 2019 Browning? Is that right in line with kind of how you attacked the race during those eras?
Yeah, I've always found that. Well, I'm running. I'm also doing High Lonesome 19 days later. So I've been trying to balance speed with vert. So trying to do both. I mean, obviously you need vert for Western States because it's almost 24,000 feet of downhill. So
right.
You definitely have to be vert trained, but you have to be fast too. So like I've definitely put in the speed work, heat training, all that kind of stuff. But I've also balanced that with another long run a week where it's more like High Lonesome focused. Poles, pack, that kind of stuff. But then another day where it's more faster with handhelds, and in the heat, stuff like that. So I've been trying to balance those two things. I feel like, 16, 18, I think I've run multiple times where I've done, Western States Hard Rock Double, where they're 19 days apart. So I just kind of approached this year similar to like what I did in those years. And that's, balance those two things, make sure I have the speed work, so you're fast, and that kind of stuff. So I feel like my training block's been great. Not a lot. I had one little setback where I had to like stumble while I was in the middle of having a conversation with Michael Versteeg. We did a hard workout up Granite Mountain in Prescott and on a hot day at midday. And we were done with the workout and we were cruising down socializing on the downhill. And I was like a half a mile from the trailhead talking over my shoulder and kicked a rock and went down.
Oh boy.
And bloodied my knee and that kind of stuff. So I was like on my bike for like 2 days before I was back running again. But that was the only setback I really had in this training block. So I felt pretty good. I've had 200s this spring as kind of build-up races, more low-key stuff of races that I hadn't done but wanted to check out or support. Smaller hundreds that are trying to grow. And so, yeah, I feel like I've had, my typical, I've been doing this a long time, so I feel like I know, kind of know what to do. I just got to go do the work.
Yeah, man. I mean, it sounds like you're fit. If you're Stephen Moore, you're probably scared about your record this year because you're coming in with a lot of speed and fitness and experience. I mean, let me get your mindset. Like the race goes off fast. Are you going out there and just having your best day and then seeing how fast you're going to go? Because it seems like that time isn't that scary of a time for you to approach. Like, I don't want to overhype you, but what's your mindset? Are you just going in there and trying to, throw your nose in with the field and be as competitive as you can be? And see what that does for the day, or are you really focused in on that 18:14 time?
I'm just focusing on my time.
Okay.
I'm not going to get caught up in the race. I've done that one time at Western States in 2021, and that was one of my 4 career DNFs. I blew
Right.
my quads up, went out way too hard. It was a good reminder. I hadn't done that since '07 in my first hard rock, going out too hard. And that, '07 really set the stage for how I race all of my hundreds over the years. And slowly, almost like thinking of it like a progression run, and like really bringing it the second half. And that's my plan for Western States. I have a time goal based on my old splits, on some of my old splits on the course. I went through and kind of like with a fine tooth comb and looked at my splits that I've run before and where I felt like I ran well in all the different Western States iterations. And I put together, a split chart. So, I'll be trying to run pretty fast,
Right.
and hopefully that's good enough to take the record down by quite a bit.
Awesome, man. Yeah, dude, I'm stoked for you. I think last one for me was just like our sport doesn't really do a good job of like highlighting, I think, age group records, and this is like the biggest race, I think in the United States, obviously for the 100-mile intention. You look at something like golf, they got the Champions Tour. Like, are the 200s and these age groups kind of being where we can celebrate the guys that, were in the 20 teens or, 2000 eras and still celebrate the competitive nature that they bring to the sport? Like, what can we do better to lift up these age group records and showcase them?
I mean, I think they could do a good job, especially with like live feeds and stuff. Just like
Right.
you're looking for content to fill anyway. I've helped with Mountain Outpost quite a bit as an announcer. We're always looking for content to be
Yeah.
able to fill, and having some profiles on some age group athletes would be a cool way to do that.
Right.
So I mean, honestly, I'm not big. I'm personally, even at my age, I'm not really like thinking about age group. Except for this one, just because it's such a, old and prestigious and competitive race. So, I care about that as a stat for this race. But frankly, most races I'm not really worried about that because I'm still trying to compete with the younger guys. So, but this one's so fast that I think it's out of my wheelhouse to run a 15:18. So. But especially at my age, but I think I can run, pretty fast still.
Yeah, that 40 to
Man,
49 one
Jeff, we're gonna
Tyler
be.
really just
Oh,
put
go ahead.
out of reach, man. That 15:05 that Tyler Green put up for the Masters record is impressive. So yeah, I mean, there's just tons of things to celebrate as guys kind of
Yeah,
age
totally.
into their 40s, like us. Like we resonate closer with you guys when you guys start getting older and becoming more human. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, totally.
Jeff, thanks, man. I appreciate you doing this. We're going to be rooting for you. Wolfie's buddy, who's on your crew, is going to be giving us some updates, as well as obviously from the live feed. But man, we're a fan, and we couldn't be more grateful that you took the time to be with us today. And we should do this again sometime.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man. Take it down.
care.
Have a good
Giddy
day.
up.